I'm Claire Cousins and welcome back. I haven't seen you for a little while. Well, I haven't been uploading many videos, but they have been spaced out, the ones that have been uploaded, so I hope you've enjoyed them. This particular episode is a little extra one. It's a Christmas one because I've been making some Christmas mats for our table for Christmas this year, and so I thought you might like to come and join me on making these mats. So come to my desk and see what I'm up to. Right, okay, what I've done so far is I've got my fabrics. So I've got this lovely Scottishy fabric, and I've got another one in reds like this, and I've worked out the best positioning to get the actual motif all in one little patch. So I've cut this in strips, or I started to cut it in strips, and I've cut it again into the smaller pieces. So I've got like the individual panels of the print, and they're going to be eventually patchworked together like that. In the centre, because I love this Scotty print so much, I was fortunate enough to find an embroidery that I've got, and that's in my workroom at the moment. I'm in my dining room cutting, so I'll show you this. So I've cut the strips, I've cut them to get my sections that I want, and then I'm just going to show you the actual thing I'm making. Here's the finished item that I'm making, and as you can see, these are these pre-cut patches that I've already cut out, and I've stitched them together in a run, and I've done that again on this side. I repeated that stitch run, and then I've got another fabric, quite a nice vintagey looking bauble, and again I've managed to cut that in strips that just catch the bauble, and then I'll bring down slowly if I don't lose focus, but I'm hoping you can see that that is all hand embroidered using a vintage embroidery design, and I'll show you that in a second. Bring it back up. So this is the bauble fabric that I've purchased, and I could, I don't know if you can see that, but I just about managed to get a strip. So with a bit of fiddling about, depending on your fabric, you can get the best out of it, and obviously you can see here it's a bit close there, but there you go, and that's how I managed to get that bottom strip in there, where you can actually see the box clear bauble, or 3 baubles. What I have here is an old transfer, one of the ones that used to iron on, and it's come from a magazine called, it does say on it somewhere, here it is, it's come from the Good Needlework and Knitting magazine, and it was a given away with the issue of April 1939. Now I was fortunate enough to inherit a whole batch of these from my Nana Fisher, who clearly has some kind of subscription, because I found the original envelopes to her numerous addresses, and yeah, I've got quite a collection of these now, but this one I particularly liked because, being vintage, it really seemed to match with the fabric that I'd purchased. And here we go, there's the strips, a set of strips all patched up ready, just waiting for trimming. So there we go. Now there was quite a few different designs on here, different aspects that I quite liked, but I thought the best one, what I wanted, was this little chap here, sort of Scotty, and he's just on a step, and I thought, well, that would make a nice Christmas box. So what I've done is I've used a light box, and I've transferred using one of these phantom pens, the one that's sort of the iron away. This is a Uniball Phantom, and I like these, as I say, because they iron away with heating. You've got Friction, there's different types of brands, but I find they work okay. And let me just show you what it looks like Now there's another video on how to transfer vintage designs using a light box, so I'll try and put the link either on this video or down below, so please go and take a look at that video to find out how to transfer that design. Rather than iron it and lose it forever, I've traced it off, as I say, on the light box. So that's that. And then what I've done is I've then stitched it. I've popped it in a frame. So I've got a small frame here, and you can see that I've changed that step to a Christmas decoration, and stitched them in black and red to go with the fabric. So if I just bring that fabric back in, you can see, oh, that's upside down. You can see how it kind of matches in, all very vintagey. That's your vintage Christmas. And I've managed to do that a number of times I've needed it for my mat. And then these marks that I've still got on it, I can iron them off. These will need ironing anyway, because I've got this fabric I've chosen. It's not the thickest. I probably, if I was to do this again, probably put an interfacing underneath, because the fabric's quite thin. And though the ring was doing a good job, when you take it out of its ring, it does tend to slightly pucker. So I've got one here, that last one I haven't finished yet. And I've got me threads, so I've got me black, me white, me red threads, which now got into quite a tangle. I'm just going to take this frame out and frame up the new one. Now, these frames have been used a lot, and so they have got quite mucky. You can wrap them in a ribbon cord. If you're going to do that, make sure it's not a shiny one, because you want it to grip. But as I say, it's quite a small ring, so it's still holding quite nicely. And then all I need now is a needle. Okay, I've already threaded up my needle here. I've got an embroidery needle, and it's a 510. The hole's nice, good size hole, and it's quite a sturdy needle. I like those. I've put a tiny little knot in the end. I've used 2 strand. It's a 6-stranded cotton. Is this branded? Yes, it's Anchor. I've used Anchor. Don't always use branded, but I have in this case. And then all I'm going to do is start from the back and just put in a stitch. And wherever the markings are is where the little straight stitches are going. So it's nice and easy to follow. Not pulling too hard on the thread, because that causes puckering, and get some nice even stitches. And I'm going to do this all the way around my little chap. Sometimes I have to go all the way through the fabric and come back up. Other times I like to go through and come up. I don't think it makes much difference. The only difference being is every time you do that, you are pushing the fabric out of the ring. So you are losing tension. So you are really technically better off going through the fabric and coming up the back. And this is where sometimes you benefit from having a frame attached to your table, because it means you don't have to stop and start. You can use both hands, so you can push down with one hand and push up with the other hand if you're ambidextrous. I don't have a tabletop frame, I've only got just regular in your hand frames. But this could take some time, so I'm going to come back and show you the next stage. I've done all the back, just the little tiny stitches, little straight stitches, Now I'm going to do around the box. Now what I tend to do is I tend not to do back stitch, because I always find back stitch doesn't ever look to me very straight. I don't know if it's my own stitching does that, but I found that if I just do a running stitch, this is a two-stranded yarn, or thread I should say. If I just do a basic running stitch around my outline, like that, then what I can do is go back and fill in the gaps, and I have, for me personally, I found it's given me a much straighter line. Backstitch is brilliant if you've got like a variegated thread, but as this isn't variegated it doesn't matter, it's just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew around the box, which is, I say, is two-stranded, and then the stripes that I've got going on here is just a single strand, so it's not as dominant, and that's how I get the little parcel effect. So you can see here, so it's double all the way around the outside, double in the white as well, and then the stripes are a single strand, and then I've also done the bow. So the next stage, once I've got the embroidery done and I've got the side panels done, I can then start to construct it and put it all together. So I'll show you that next. I'm going to sew these pieces together now, and this is how I want them arranged. So I want them to butt up to each other. So what I tend to do is I tend to lay them out, because these are directional, and there's nothing worse than sewing it where you've got one upside down. So I like to check where I'm putting it, and you can see the red one, because of the repeat pattern, is a fraction smaller than the grey one. I like to take a sort of an average. Now obviously it depends on the fabric that you're using, and you just have to work with what you've got. So what I'm doing now is, now I know that wants to go there, I'm going to flip it and line that up. So there's a little bit of a gap there and a little bit of a gap there to get the best fit from both. And then I'm popping the edge of my foot on the edge of the fabric. Now I want the smallest seam I can get away with, because of how close, I'll just show you how close these little dogs are to the bottom. So if the print was a bit bolder, I probably could have gone with a bigger seam allowance. So what I'm doing is I'm changing my needle position, across, and so I've got the needle coming down as close to this edge as possible. On my machine you can do a dot start. So what I mean by a dot start is a little button that gives me a knot. What I don't like is, I don't like to do the backwards and forwards, because it can drag your fabric into the machine. And then I'm just going to go along that edge. Now what's handy, or what's a good idea to do, is to stop the machine before it gets to the end, do your little knot if you've got the knot. You might need to do reverse if you haven't got anything else. And then I like to get the next piece of next pair ready. Now again, I want the red at the top and I want the grey at the bottom. So I then flip that, and I know that that is where I want those two to be. And I'm just going to sew straight onto the next one. So straight onto the next one, I like to stop, I like to do my dot knot. And I carry on, doing this until I get a complete strip of them. Or if I don't want to do a complete strip of them, I can stop there. I can cut the one off the back off, and I can attach that to the next one. So I can decide that obviously I've got to have a grey piece there. The grey will go like that, and I can flip that over. Pop that under. sew to the next one, do the little dot knot when I get there. And I would continue like that until I eventually got my 2 lots of strips. Now what I've done, I don't know if I can zoom out here. Move my sewing machine out of the way. So what I end up with is 2 strips. Now you'll notice that I've done them till they alternate, so I've got it so it goes red, grey, red, grey, and then this one I've got grey, red, grey, red. Now as I mentioned earlier, I was taking the best average with the red, and then what I'll do is I'll trim down to where the red is, so I'll trim that off, and I'll come back to you in a minute. So as long as I've got a pair, so I've got a pair, and I'm going to pin them together because I'm going to be making 9 sets of these mats, so I need to keep myself organised. So that's one set. Here's another set, another set, got one on the machine, and then the one I've already made, that makes 5, so I've got another 4 to go. So I'll come back to you and tell you the next stage. Right, I've ironed my pieces. I'm now going to trim. So I'm getting what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, what I tend to do is I actually use the mat, so you can see there's a line there and there's a line there, so the 2 red ones I will line up with that line, and then I will line this line up with this seam, and this line up as best I can with that seam, and then line up here with the yellow line that I can see, and then trim off any of the waste edge like that. And I'll do that to all edges. So I'll just do that again. So I'm going to line up the red pieces with this yellow line, making sure that it's square to this line. Use my quilting ruler to line up the seams here, and it might be that you might have to take a slight average if you're sewing slightly out, but there you go. And we have a piece trimmed up ready, and I'll do that with all of them. Okay, so I have ironed him and I've trimmed him up a bit. He's not at the right size yet because the ring, obviously I had it on a strip, and because the ring had to be a certain size, it's too big at the moment. You can see it's quite a lot bigger. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting him there like that. That's going to be going there like that. That will be going there like that. And then the other one will be going there like that. So you can see how that's going to work out. So first things first, I've got to then work out how big he's going to be. So the best way I found for doing that was by folding this out, I could get that exact measurement the same. So that is the measurement I need going that way. So I'm actually using my patches to help me, because you can cut as accurately as you like, but if you're sewing slightly off, you won't get. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just lining them up with where I want it, and I'm thinking it's about there, and I will be trimming that up to fit. What I've done is I've trimmed the bottom and the top, and that's so they correspond with the 2 panels in the centre. Okay, now the reason I have to do it this way is because I can't use measurements, is the fact that whatever pattern your fabric's like, it will be governed by the design repeat size. So as I say, this is a method specifically for matching units or motifs, so it's difficult to measure, especially if your design's a different design of fabric. I've cut these the same width as that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball it where I want it to be. So I'm just eyeballing that there and there, and because it's directional, I'm lining it up ready so that when I flip it, I know that when I sew it, it will open up the right way. So I'm going to sew along that edge, and I'm going to sew along that edge, and then trim it up. I've ironed it like I did before, and I'm just lining it up again with the lines on my mat to get the best fit. I'm sure those that are avid quilters will say I'm doing this all wrong, but to be honest with you, this is the best method I have found trying to cope with the actual print and the motif to get them where I want them. And I'm just going to trim that off. And that, I'm going to trim the other side as well because it looks a little bit wonky. Again, using my ruler to help me. Some people measure, but I haven't got time to measure it. I've got too many to make. There we go. I'm happy with that. So all I'm going to do now is position these where I want them. So that will go there. That will go there. So I will just flip them, and I will stitch down there. Do the same on the other side, and I'll have the top finished, ready for the quilting stage. Okay, I've ironed it again. I finished it, finished the top. Where I've got some wonkiness going on, I should just trim off. And then I'm going to cut the under fabric, the grey, and we're doing grey, the same size as this. And then I'm also going to cut some cotton batting, slightly smaller, not much smaller. What I have found is if I cut cotton batting on the mat with a blade, it does wreck the mat. So I've now taken to cutting cotton batting with a pair of scissors because it's just not worth destroying the mat. And I've got a horrible feeling it's blunting my blade as well, so I think if I use scissors with the cotton batting. So I'm going to cut the pieces the same or similar size to this. The grey fabric definitely the same size, the cotton batting just a very small fraction smaller, or I might cut it the same size and then cut it down later. It depends what mood I'm in. I'll come back to you. Okay, so what I've done is I have got the top part of the fabric face up. I've covered that with the backing material, and then I'm going to put the cotton batting on the back, which is completely different to how you would normally sandwich a quilt, for instance. And the reason for that is I'm going to do what's called the bagging technique, which is only such a tiny thing, and for speed I'm going to do what's called the bagging technique, whereby I sew all the way around, turn it through, and then I sew the hole up, and that means I don't have to have I don't have to have bias tape around the outside and adding extra hand stitching time to make it neat. So yeah, I'm just going to sew around the outside edge as close to the edge as I dare go, and then leaving a gap, pull it through. I'll come back and show you. I have sewn a seam as tiny as possible, and I've also trimmed away the cotton batting as close to that seam as possible. I've trimmed all the corners, and now what I'm going to do is turn, because I've left the bottom section open, I'm going to turn it through. So make sure you turn it through with the two fabrics, and you grab the corner and you pull it through. Now fingers crossed I have actually managed to do all the way around, but my fear is because I sewed so tight to the edge it might give way. And once it's pulled through, I can then top stitch it. Now so far I haven't changed my foot, I've still used my regular foot on my machine. However, if I was to stitch in the ditch, I would probably change my foot to the quilter's walking foot. But as I said, this is such a tiny thing, all I'm going to do is push that seam in, or that opening I should say, so fold that all in, give that a good press, and press it all before I top stitch all the way around. I hope you've found it informative, useful. As I say, I don't follow the rules necessarily. If I did, I wouldn't have wonky seams. But it's, at the end of the day, it's a placemat, and I don't think my guests will be scrutinising it for a competition. So it's not competition quality. As I say, I'm making them quick and fast so they're ready for Christmas. Alright, thank you for joining me. Take care, and hopefully see you in the new year. Bye bye for now.